You tell yourself you're the problem, that something inside you went wrong. But what if the feeling you call self-hatred isn't about you at all? What if it's about who you slowly became? You wake up, live your day, do what's expected, and yet something feels quietly off. Not loud, just heavy. You don't recognize yourself the way you used to, and that gap is where the pain lives. It shows up in small moments. You catch your reflection and feel distant. Not disgusted, just disconnected. You think back to how you used to be, more curious, more honest, more alive.
Now your decisions feel automatic. Your conversations feel edited. Your goals don't excite you, but you keep chasing them anyway. You're functional, responsible, even doing fine. But internally, there's a quiet grief you don't talk about because it doesn't sound serious enough to explain. So you label it as self-hatred. I don't like myself. I've lost something. I ruined my potential. Psychologically, this isn't random. It's a clash between identity memory and current behavior. Your brain keeps a record of who you believe you are, your values, your intentions, the version of you that felt aligned. When your daily actions drift too far from that internal record, your mind doesn't say, "This life isn't working." It says, "You are the problem."
But that interpretation comes later. Here's the quiet truth. You don't hate yourself. You hate the distance between who you are and how you live. And that distance didn't appear because you failed. It appeared because you adapted. At some point, being fully yourself cost too much, emotionally, socially, or practically. So your brain did what it's designed to do. It chose safety over alignment. That choice kept you functioning, but it also muted parts of you that mattered. This feeling you're in now, it's not self-loathing. It's misalignment grief. And grief always sounds like anger when it has nowhere to go. Let's slow this down. Your brain runs on prediction. It constantly asks, what version of me keeps me safe here? When you repeatedly act against your values, not dramatically, but subtly, your brain updates your identity model. Think of it like a compass. Your values are true north. Your actions are the needle. When the needle keeps pointing elsewhere, the brain doesn't question the environment. It questions you. Neuroscience shows that the anterior cingulate cortex, the brain's conflict detector, activates when behavior and identity don't match. That activation feels like discomfort, restlessness, irritability, a vague sense of something's wrong. Over time, your mind looks for a story to explain the feeling. I'm lazy. I'm broken. I don't like myself. But those are interpretations, not causes. The cause is prolonged self-betrayal at a low, invisible level. Not dramatic enough to notice, just constant enough to hurt. This isn't about becoming a new person. It's about reducing the gap. Not all at once, but deliberately. Here's a framework grounded in how the brain actually changes. What to do. Stop describing yourself with traits. Start naming what you stopped honoring. Instead of "I hate who I am," ask, what value did I abandon to survive? Why it works? The brain responds better to specific violations than global self-judgment. Specificity reduces threat response and activates problem-solving circuits. Real-life example? You realize you don't hate yourself. You miss being honest. You've been agreeable to avoid conflict, not because it's who you are. This shifts the problem from identity collapse to value neglect. And that changes everything. What to do? Notice when you feel slightly more alive, even briefly. Not happier, just more you. Why it works. Dopamine isn't about pleasure. It's about alignment and pursuit. Energy spikes signal moments where identity and action briefly match. Real-life example. You feel lighter after a real conversation, even if it was awkward. That's not coincidence. That's alignment feedback. Your brain is showing you the direction, quietly. What to do? Pick one daily moment to act slightly more in line with your values. Not radically, just noticeably. Why it works. Large identity shifts trigger threat responses. Small changes rebuild trust between behavior and self-concept. Real-life example. You say, "I need time to think," instead of automatic yes. Your nervous system registers relief. That relief is the brain recalibrating its internal model of you. What to do? Acknowledge that some behaviors kept you safe, but aren't you. Why it works. The brain confuses survival strategies with personality when they last too long. Naming the distinction reduces shame. Real-life example. You weren't fake. You were adapting in an environment that didn't allow full expression. This creates compassion without excuses. What to do? Let actions, not thoughts, restore your self-image. Why it works. The brain updates identity through observed behavior, not internal dialogue. Self-trust is behavioral memory. Real-life example. You keep one small promise to yourself for a week. Your self-talk softens without effort because the brain believes what it sees. Here's the model to remember. You are not at war with yourself. You are grieving an old alignment. When values, actions, and identity point in the same direction, self-respect returns naturally, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like coming home to a room you forgot you loved. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to realign. One day you'll notice it. The self-criticism isn't as sharp. The heaviness isn't as constant. Not because you forced confidence, but because you stopped abandoning yourself in small ways. And when that happens, you won't say, "I finally like myself." You'll think something quieter.